Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be discussing how to stop your opponent's counterplay. So we have a rook endgame here. I was actually playing white here against a much lower rated opponent. I had to win this game, of course. And so now I would recommend you to pause the video and come up with the best move for white. Okay. So it looks like white can win this pretty easily because he's going to take the g6 pawn and the pawn will go down. The problem though is that if a move like king takes g6 now, then black will play a move like rook to d3, and this is actually a draw because white cannot defend his d4 pawn, so now white has to just push his g5 pawn, and white's more active. But the problem is that black will get a lot of counterplay with a d pawn, and I have this sample variation now. White has to waste some time, and he needs to control this pawn. But then black starts harassing the white king, and he will eventually win the g7 pawn. I mean, this was nice. White can probably try for a trick like king h8, but then rook takes g7 anyway. White wins the rook, but of course counterplay happens, and this position's a draw because white will eventually sacrifice the rook for the black pawn. I mean, he'll have to, so it will be a draw. So that is why this endgame actually takes some technique. I mean, the same sort of thing will happen on the move rook takes g6. I mean, black plays rook to d3. There's no way for white to defend the d4 pawn, and the d pawn will get sufficient counterplay for a draw. So with that, white needs to make a move that would defend his d pawn. So king f6 now is the most natural move. This is winning, I think, because the point being that on the move like rook to d3, there's the move king to e5, which defends the d4 pawn, and then white will win the d5 pawn soon. The thing, though, is that I think white probably wins with only moves rook to e3 here. Now, the point is that rook to e3 stops the king from coming to e5, and he will attack the pawn with the move rook to e4. So rook takes g6. This is maybe, I think white's winning with only moves. Rook to e4, rook to g8 check, king d7, and white pushes the g5 pawn. Rook takes d4, g6, check. And now a very important move, this move king to g5. This is the only move that wins. I mean, you'll see why, because on the move rook to f1, there is this move g7. And the point being that once this move king e7 is played to get closer to the pawn, rook to e8 is just in time to promote. Because now king takes e8 and we play g8 queen with check, so there's no skewer. And it's also nice because if there's check on g1, the king actually will run away from the checks. And on the move rook to g1, there's this move rook a8 and rook g7, and we have that very nice skewer, very typical skewer of these rook endgames in here. White's winning, of course. So that is why this move king f6 is winning. However, again, yeah, king to e7. On the move rook to e8 check, king takes e8, for example. And let's make a queen. White still has to prove the win with queen versus rook. I mean, okay, king takes e7, and we play maybe queen takes d5 with a check. Oh, we're not with a check. We play the move queen takes d5. White still needs some technique to win this. That's why I believe that this is not the cleanest way to win. Not only, but white has to find only moves to win this position. So that is why the best move in this position is this very strange-looking move, king back to f4. The idea of king to f4 is to play against the move rook e3, because then now black cannot attack the d4 pawn through the e4 square because there's no rook to e3 and rook e4 maneuver. That's the difference between king f6 and king f4. That's why king f4 is such a mysterious move. It looks so passive, it's getting away from the action, but it's winning. Of course, my opponent was horrified when he saw this move. I think he made the best move in this position, rook h6. Maybe white can win with the move king e5. But now you see white has a few ways to win. White's options are open rather than finding only moves. And I think, like for example, in line with king f6, if white did not follow the variation exactly, then white's not winning. But here I think the move king e5 and g5 are winning. Probably some other moves maybe, but this is a very concrete way of winning. g5, rook h4, king to e5. Through this move king f4, we basically stopped all of black's counterplay. Now black is not winning the d4 pawn, and he's going to just lose the g6 and the d5 pawns. He played the move rook to g4, and on the move rook takes g6, king f7 was played. So rook f6 check. And now if the move king to e7 here, white plays the move rook to f5, and after he takes the d5 pawn, the two pawns are going to easily win it against the black king. That's why king g7 was played. This is trickier because on the move rook f5, there always is king g6 funny business. But however, white now just takes the pawn on d5. Rook takes g5 and king e6. Of course, you probably should calculate this variation before you make the move g5, but this position isn't that difficult to navigate through. It's not too bad. It's not that difficult to find the best moves. So here, black played for one last trick. If a move like rook to g1, then white makes a move like rook f5. The black king is cut off and the d-pawn just moves down the board. But he made the move rook to g4. There's a trick behind this. Now, the d4 pawn is hanging. And the problem is that if I push the pawn to d5, there's this check on e4. The only move is king f5 because, I have to keep defense of my rook. And then rook to f4 check, king f4 and king f6, and we get a drawn king and pawn in the game. So that's why it looks as though black has saved the game through this move rook to g4 almost. But the thing is that white can defend the pawn in another way, rook f7. Check on the move king g6, rook to d7. And now in this position, rook to e4 was played, king d5, rook to e1, and I played the move king to d6. Now the idea is simply to make the move d5. And I always have a very big sigh of relief whenever the pawn comes to d5 in such positions because there are no frontal check defenses that black can get away with the pawn on d5. With the pawn on d4, sometimes sometimes there are some frontal check defenses that black can get away with, but with the pawn on d5, it won't. Black has no chance to save the game. He tried to move rook a1 to give checks from the a file, but I played the move rook to e7 and king f6, and I played the move rook to e2. And in this position, he resigned actually because I have just my d-pawn just going down the board. His king cannot get in front of the pawn, and slowly I'll get a Lucena position. I have this sample variation, for example, just to demonstrate rook a6, king c5, rook a8, d5, rook c8, king b6. And this is nice. If the pawn were on d4, this position would be a draw. And this is what I meant by frontal defenses. Because with the pawn on d4, I would be forced to play the move king back to c5, and then he starts giving checks here. And there's no way how I could make progress there. But with the pawn on d5, it's winning because I could just defend. And I move rook c8. I play the move king b7, and he does not have checking space. So now, we just get our Lucena position, and we just win the game like this. Very typical. I don't even know why I kept analyzing it. But you see, so it's very interesting actually how this very counterintuitive move, king f4, is so effective because it gives black absolutely no counterplay. I mean, king f6 is winning, but white wins with the only moves, and even after white makes all the right moves, he still has to win with some technique against the queen versus rook. Although it's not really a problem. I think it's a pretty easy win, but it takes work. The move king f4. I was almost surprised that he didn't even resign here. Actually, I was amazed at how many tricks he got. But the point was that now he has no more pawns. I basically eliminated all of his pawns, so he has no counterplay. And one way or another, I am going to win. And whenever you're winning, one of the very important aspects of converting your advantages to stop all of your opponent's counterplay. All right, thanks.